Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 5. I hope you had a good weekend. I am going to get right to it with this overview video, so let me share my screen. So as I said, we're in week 5, and if I open up the narrative unit, we'll take a look at the week 5 materials. So this week you are working really hard on your revision for this first essay, the narrative essay. And that is due Sunday, October 3rd. Take a look down here at the writing process part 3, proofreading the essay, and you'll find a lot of helpful links. It's a lot of reading that's included because, there are articles from writing centers. I'll just open up this one on commas to give you an example of how much reading is involved. There's a lot of good information, and I encourage you to look through these to see if you have any kind of questions that need to be answered regarding grammar and usage and punctuation and that kind of stuff. So there are several of these, and I also have several exercises that we'll be doing in class, and I'll open up the resources folder right here to show you some of those. So the first one is this grammar cheat sheet. It's kind of a misnomer because it's actually 5 pages of information, but I found this online and I thought it might be a helpful resource for you to have. There's a bunch of different boxes that highlight different things that students have questions on regarding grammar, punctuation, so on and so forth. So we have commonly confused words, and you'll remember from the exercise that we did in the last class, the one that made everybody's brain hurt, on that last slide where we did the proofreading and editing exercise. And some of those commonly confused words were your instead of your, possessive, and its and its. So this is a handy little reference. Again, apostrophes, where you use them, where you don't use them. Don't use apostrophes to make ordinary nouns plural. Then we have capitalization rules, parallelism, modifiers. So if you've ever heard the phrase dangling participle or dangling modifiers, this is an interesting one. So if a sentence starts with an ing phrase that ends in a comma, the word immediately after the comma should be who or what, that is the subject of the sentence. So here's a not okay example. Digging in her purse, comma, her keys fell out. And you'll notice here, if we really think about it, the keys are not the thing that's digging in her purse, right? It's the person who's digging in her purse. So you would revise it this way: digging in her purse, comma, she dropped her keys. Or as she was digging in her purse, comma, her keys fell out. In both of these instances, we're using the pronouns she and her to indicate the subject of the sentence. So moving on. Connectors and or but or so. There's actually a few more that you can add to this list. The easy acronym is fanboys, which stands for and nor, but, or, yet, so, fanboys. I will hopefully have a handout ready for you to indicate what those things mean, just so that it sticks in your mind. So look over these rules regarding how to punctuate when using connectors, how to use your commas, and how to use periods or semicolons. With these subordinate conjunctions, although, because, if, when, since, before, after, while, unless, again, you're going to use comma. So this is kind of a thing on comma use. Then we talked a lot about sentence fragments in week 4 and run-on sentences. Here are some things to help, but I also have some worksheets that we will be getting to in class. And then on this sheet, we have commas and some other miscellaneous information. And lastly, there is tricky subject-verb agreement. So I will leave this. I'm not going to explain every single page. I will leave this for you to take a look at. And hopefully that helps you with many of the questions that you have regarding grammar, punctuation, and all those editing errors that are hopefully easy to fix. The next one, as I just referred to, is the run-on sentences worksheets. And this is a 2-page worksheet with a very easy to understand explanation at the top showing the run-on sentence and how you would correct that run-on sentence. Most run-on sentences are the result of a comma fault, or some people call them a comma splice. I tend to call it a comma splice, where a comma is used by itself to join 2 or more sentences or 2 or more independent clauses. So you need to remember that an independent clause is a clause that can stand on its own 2 feet. It's independent, right? It can fend for itself. Essentially, an independent clause is what we call a sentence, right? Sentences can stand on their own 2 feet. So here, the comma splice or the comma fault is Cynthia has a new dress, comma, it is blue and white. We realize that both of these phrases can stand on their very own. So the way to correct that is either with a period, or if they are related to one another, the thoughts are related to one another, we can often replace it with a semicolon. So the correction here is Cynthia has a new dress, period, a sentence that stands on its own. It is blue and white, period. So there's 2 pages. The other one is showing the example of using correct punctuation between the 2 sentences again. So here they show that you could either put a semicolon between the 2 sentences or put a period. So you can do an either or in the second worksheet. And the answer key will be available, but not until after the end of class, because I don't want anybody referring to it during class time as we go through the exercises. Then we move on to revision. We have a says does activity. And this is going to be related to, we're actually using the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass from week 1. And the handout that I provided in last week's resources folder, the functions of paragraphs. And so what I'm asking you to do in this activity is to create a chart on a separate piece of paper with 2 columns, one that says and the other one that says does. And then you're going to read through each paragraph of the narrative. Summarize briefly what each one says. So you'll write that in the says column. And you'll do that for each paragraph. And then referring to the functions of paragraphs handout, you'll decide which each paragraph does, what each paragraph does. So here are some examples. The key to writing does sentences is to keep them different from the says sentences. You don't want to mention the content of the paragraph. You just want to mention the purpose, the function of that paragraph within the essay. So you shouldn't be able to tell from a does sentence whether a paragraph is talking about cars or whether it's talking about ice cream. So the example is here. This paragraph gives an example of how women's liberation has affected men more than it has women. So we see here, yes, it is giving an example. That's the function. However, we don't need all of this extra information. This is more of a says sentence, right? To make it a real does sentence, you want to remove any mention of those ideas or content and talk solely about the function. So we would say this paragraph gives an example, or maybe extend it a little bit by saying this paragraph gives an example designed to surprise the reader. So that is one activity that we will do in class. And the other revision activity is creative revision, and there are 2 suggestions here. And this is based on a website that I found while I was preparing for this course this week. The first one is the Marie Kondo. Does it spark joy? So you're going to go through your sentences, each sentence, choose a sentence in each paragraph that does not spark joy, strike through it, and reread it to see if cutting that sentence affects the meaning of the paragraph. If it doesn't affect the meaning, if it has no negative effect on your paragraph and you're not completely in love with it, if it does not spark joy for you, then you might want to get rid of it. So this is really helpful if you've written a draft that's longer than the minimum required word count. If you're struggling to reach the word count, I don't recommend doing this kind of an exercise. However, if you're way over the word count, this might be a good way for you to figure out which things you can keep and which things you're better off not keeping. Then the second one, which I think I'll focus on in class, is called Magnify the Moment. So we've heard about show, don't tell, especially in narrative and creative writing. And they both have a rhetorical purpose within the piece of prose, and they both need to coexist. So it's not like you need to always be showing and never telling, or always telling and never showing. You have to have a little bit of both. So in this activity, your focus will be to show your audience what's occurring. To begin, you will reread your draft and underline any moments where you are telling the audience something. For example, I was scared. And then take one of those tells and just magnify the moment by showing instead. For example, my knees were shaking and my stomach was doing flips as I stood in front of the group of third graders. See how that's much more descriptive? It's really showing what's going on in the moment, the feelings of the character, etc. So if you consider some of the questions from character's subjective experience, you want to think of what senses were heightened at the moment, how are the character's physiological experience of the world shifting, how does their face, voice, stance, etc. transform? Are they twitching? Is there discomfort? Anything that's happening in the body at this moment? And then, of course, if you're choosing to magnify the moment in a setting, consider some really concrete details. What are the sensory details of the place? Colors, scents, light, dark, those kind of things. What time period, season, or what kind of weather details are going on? How does the setting interact with the character's emotions? And what is the general mood of the scene? And lastly, you might want to think about other characters who are also in the scene. Okay, so that is another revision activity for you. Creative revision. Let me go back to the course page and just make sure I haven't forgotten anything. So yeah, the assignment link, I do want to go over the rubric for the assignment. So, oh heck, you know what? If I click on this box, I think I need to do a new share. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. So hopefully you will be able to see this rubric pop up and see what I'll be looking at as I grade the essay. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 criteria. First one, making sure that the work is complete. You need to write at least 900 words. If you are writing less than 900 words, you're going to get some points taken off right off the bat. So ensuring that you write the complete assignment, that you use correct MLA formatting. Those are 2 things right off the way. You're already getting 20%, right, on your assignment. So yes, general MLA heading format with your heading, title, page numbers, double space, 12-point font, that kind of thing. You should have an effective introduction. We've been focusing on introductions. The week 4 assignment was for you to share your introduction and get feedback from your peers on the discussion board. So we'll be talking a little bit more about how we can make really good introductions, avoiding announcing what you're going to be writing about. I'm going to tell you about this. I'm going to do this in this essay. We want to avoid the announcing, right? Focused and clear thesis statement. At least be able to give your reader a good idea of what your essay's focus is, right? And then with paragraphs, we talked about paragraphs at length last week, that there should be one idea per paragraph and that each idea is fully developed. Sentences, you want to make sure that they're clear, concise, and direct. And then grammar and mechanics, evidence that you have proofread and edited your rough draft. We've already gone through the rough draft. I've pointed out in my feedback to you where things need to be corrected and how best to correct those things. So I hope that you take that feedback into consideration as you revise. Organization, of course, the introduction, that you have body paragraphs and that you have a conclusion, that you have transitions that move the reader easily through one idea to the next throughout your essay, and then of course that you have a conclusion. Some of you in your rough drafts kind of had conclusions, but you needed to expand a little bit, or some of you just kind of ran out of gas, which I totally understand. This happens, especially when you're drafting. Sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm not to the point where I can make a solid conclusion. So I'm going to be looking for conclusions this time around. So that's 10 points for 100% in the rubric. So I think that is all that I need to address. I may do a separate grammar video. I'm not sure. I'm still thinking it through. That just means a lot more work for me. But at least you have this overview video. So if you do have to miss class, you can go through those worksheets and do those couple of activities that we'll be working on in class. And you can submit any of that work to me via email just to get credit for it. I don't want to set it up as an additional assignment that's going to be graded on Blackboard. So yeah, I think for the time being, if you miss class and you want to get credit for doing those, at least the revision assignments, just make sure that you email them to me so that I can take a look and give you credit. Also, I may have a journal finally set up. I've been posting journal assignments or having them up on slides, and I haven't really done anything about posting them in Blackbook in a place where that's devoted just for you to do your writing. So I'm looking to get that set up this week, and if I do, I will set up a short video explaining how to use that journal feature. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, and I hope that you stay safe. I hope that you stay healthy, and I look forward to a time that we can all be in class again. All right, take care. Bye-bye.